was homeless for 2 years, living in my car. I had a vision of clearly what I wanted to do, and that was automate healthcare. Our lives will change.
Watch me educate. Yeah, we been could have started, but it's never late. Do it for my kids, yeah, let's set it straight. Do it for your kids, gotta set it straight. It's time to regulate. We need change now. We need solo, we need EV.
Go ahead and tell our viewers who you are and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Justin Fleagle, and I was born in rural Ohio to a family of dentists. We've been practicing since the 40s. And so I made it a point to go into dentistry and healthcare broadly when I was younger, to follow in the footsteps of my family. And I wanted to kind of solve the back-end challenges with healthcare. And I noticed there was a lot of problems that I couldn't solve as a dentist. And so I decided, I'm going to make it a point every single day when I wake up to solve this problem. And I've been doing that ever since I was 14 years old, programming artificial intelligence later on.
So it kind of informed your whole life path. You started off wanting to be a dentist. You realized there are some problems that dentists simply can't solve within their practice. And you said, what do I need to learn to actually fix the things that are wrong? Now I happen to know that you used to be an all-American athlete, and you transitioned from that to an artificial intelligence engineer or a neural network engineer. So there sounds like there's a story there.
There is.
So talk to me about it.
So my entire life has been dual personalities, I feel like. On one hand has been this kind of thing that I've done for other people. And I felt like that was the life that I was doing for swimming and athletics in general. And that was the life that I used to get where I am now. And so, I grew up in very rural Ohio, very conservative. And so that upbringing, I had to be able to get out. I had to use something to get out. And the thing that I used was athletics, and happened to be, I did well in high school. I was a 5-star recruit there. I got a scholarship to go to the Ohio State University. And so I competed there. And so my freshman year I became, we did the best NCAAs at Ohio State in the past 50 years when I was there my freshman year. And so after that, I was like, you know what? I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I've been dreaming, planning, and building things for my parents' office for so long that I'm going to make the jump. And so when I made the jump, it was quite hard, I'll be honest. I was homeless for 2 years, living in my car, living in other people's houses, on couches. But I had this vision. We can go into more of the background of why did I go so hard in this? But I had a vision of clearly what I wanted to do, and that was automate healthcare. And so the stuff that I was building in my parents' practice, I wanted to take all the way. And the natural transmission into that was artificial intelligence and neural network engineering.
Yeah, it's interesting. Every time it seems like I'm introducing someone who has had great successes, there's always this story of, I was pretty much homeless at one point. It's funny how much that shapes your journey.
Yeah.
Speaking of things that shaped your journey, your LinkedIn page mentions that you are a Z Fellows alum.
Yes.
I want to know how that shaped your path in automation, but I also want you to tell people what that means.
Yeah, absolutely. So Z Fellows is a tremendous program. I was introduced through Twitter X, like most people. I found it, and for those who don't know, the listeners, Z Fellows is sort of an accelerator in the San Francisco area, and they take people from 0 to 1. And so they equip the best and smartest individuals with their first capital, their first partnerships, and their first customers, really, to be able to get to large venture-backed companies.
Very interesting. So how did that shape your path and when you're dealing with automation in healthcare?
Yeah, absolutely. So Z Fellows, they don't really invest because, in that aspect, they don't change that aspect. They invested in us because they knew I was going to do that anyway. I have no, they don't have to force me to do things. I was already doing this when I was homeless. So when they give me money, it's, it's just exemplified. So I had a clear vision. They wanted to back it. And so that's why they did.
So it actually acted for you more than an incubator. It acted as just an amplifier of the efforts you're already making.
Yes.
Are there some early projects maybe that you worked under Z Fellows with or experiences that you had that convinced you that voice automated neural networks was really the way to go? Why is it you chose this exact path?
Yeah, absolutely. So voice automated neural networks are, at the time when I was doing this, voice automated neural networks were kind of really revolutionary. Being able to do procedure interpretation for natural language was a cool thing. It was very cool. That's actually starting to fall behind now. And that was never really the goal, actually. The goal was, as we as operators, I helped run my father's dental practice. We as operators of the dental practices, the facilities, how do we take what we're doing and multiply it? Our hours worked. And the way to do that is to automate, obviously. And so what do we have as employees in an office? We have eyes. We have two eyes, in fact. And so with these two eyes, we can see the world around us. We can interpret what's happening in an operatory room. We can see and write things like, DO Composite 18, restorations, crowns, everything. And we can distill that very quickly. And so the actual paradigm shift, I always knew was going to be vision. And, the largest players broadly in the tech space are betting on that. And so what that actually looks like is, what if you, as a dental physician, inside of each operatory had an office manager or an insurance coordinator sitting inside of the operatory, interpreting, seeing exactly what's going on 24/7. And that's that paradigm shift that really transforms. And those are vision neural networks.
So you said something there that I think is really important. And I don't think that people necessarily think this way. You mentioned a multiplier. It's a force multiplier. Mm-hmm. I mean, in the military, we'd say that about mortars and things like that. It makes what you got on the ground a lot more potent. And really, that is what AI, in my mind, should be. But you specify with Dental Agent that you are building humanless practices. Yes. Now, that's going to scare the living hell out of a lot of employees out there. So what do you mean by that specifically? Yes. And what problem are you trying to solve?
Perfect. I love this question. So broadly, I'll bring this back to a point that I always love to pose to people. Everyone likes to talk about how we want healthcare to be cheaper. We want more access to healthcare. And, there's a lot of proponents for government subsidies. I'm personally, at our company, we do not believe in government subsidies for healthcare. I don't think that they work. They broadly just prop up an industry with government spend. And so at the core of our belief, we believe in order to lower the cost of healthcare, we have to automate, industrialize, and scale. If you want to truly get cheaper prices, that's what you have to do. And we're focusing on the automation specifically right now. And how do we automate? Well, there's a lot of vectors for possible errors and a lot of vectors for cost overhead for larger dental practices, DSOs, and smaller dental practices. And so when I say humanless healthcare, I'm not saying the human part is going to be gone. Entirely the opposite. We're giving more option for a dental business owner to do what they want. You know, I wrote a blog post when I was in high school actually about this, and it was dentistry. There will be humanless dental practices in the future. There will be humanless dental practice, and when I say humanless, I mean you walk in. There's an iPad at the front, and you have a notification on your phone, and you go back, and there's a robotics that works on you as a patient. That will exist. On the other side of the spectrum, there will be, you know, we're seeing it today, spa dental practices where you have exemplified human relationships. And what we do is we're trying to give the range of option for dental business owners because they have more margin. They have more margin to be able to do the things that they need, not have the overhead. That's what I mean when I say humanless. It's not the human is gone. The human is equipped in order to do what they're better meant to do.
Well, I think that you make a really good point there. That relationship business is the business we're in.
Yeah.
And so, and I know a lot of people will get really hurt by hearing this, but I foresee a day where the government licenses robots to do dentistry.
Yes.
I see that coming. I don't know when it's going to hit the horizon, but I've always seen that. And it's a conversation you and I had, what was it, last year, whenever we were speaking. And you know, I actually attempted 4 years ago. Oh goodness, it was longer than that now. It was back in 2018 whenever I was programming with my team, and we were trying to come up with a voice activated program that would chart for you, and it would treatment plan for you. And at that point, the technology simply wasn't there. Mm-hmm. And so it's good to know that we've gotten to that point where the people in your practice aren't going to necessarily be out of a job, but they're going to be able to do what they uniquely can do and what robots will never be able to do, which is that human component. And frankly, that's going to increase treatment acceptance right there.
Absolutely.
You know, people feel special. They feel welcome. They feel maybe we'll stop hearing, I hate going to the dentist as the first thing people say when they enter the operatory. So now you've actually tested your AI in practices.
Yes.
And what capabilities have you guys developed at this point? Which ones are rock solid? Yes. Which ones are kind of in advanced beta? Which ones are now, you know?
Yep.
Talk to me about it.
Yep. So what's rock solid? I made I did the first natural language to procedure interpretation for our dental practice when I was in high school. And so what that looked like, broadly speaking, you know, for the listeners, just to understand what we actually mean by AI. When I say natural language to procedure interpretation, the conversation that Chris and I are having right now is what we call natural language. The words that we use to speak to other, I'm going to use some San Francisco tech talk, but other organic material.
Right.
You know, we're both organic material.
Well, one day, you may be speaking organic material and it's AI too, but have you read the studies on that?
The relationship studies?
No. The biological storage and biological processing studies. We'll get into that off camera. It's too geeky for the podcast, most likely.
Yeah. So AI is, when I'm saying AI is such a broad term. I don't even really like using AI to be completely frank. What the type of AI that I'm referring to is natural language to procedure, to whatever data labeling you want to do. And that's boiling down the words that we speak and labeling them into procedure codes, CDD codes for dentistry specifically. And so with that information, We can pick up information from the room in an operatory, and we can create an 837D dental claim that is sent to dental practices. And that's concrete. It's something that is getting easier to do day by day because of these large language models like OpenAI's ChatGPT, Grok, xAI's Grok. All of these are becoming more and more common because natural language is having a larger amount of information we can give it. And you can do specific post-training on these models to tell it what, its output looks like, which are dental procedure codes. Now, that's child's play. That to me is not exciting anymore.
Right.
What is exciting to me is as workers in a dental practice, I always, you're going to say the same thing for all of us. The vector for possible errors is always the solution that changes. And that's most often to be software. Software can change more quickly, and you have a lot of errors. We are building towards the near term, that when I say humanless, I mean you do your work as a provider. The clinical staff does their work. The vision networks observe you and are able to do everything else on the back end. And it starts with procedure code interpretation. That's what we specialize in. So how do we take the information that happens in the operatory and eliminate the walkout sequence for the PMS? When we eliminate that, we are the beginning of the post-patient walkout sequence. Everything that happens after a patient gets into the office, gets their work done, we allow that vector to be happening, whether it's insurance or possibly scheduling another patient. If you have specific in your PMS, some providers, I know they'll when you're doing a certain procedure code, immediately you'll get scheduled for a next appointment.
Right, explosion codes.
Yeah, explosion codes. And so, that's something that we focused on as well. But the core technology is a camera on your dental light that observes you working on a patient and is able to interpret that into everything that you do after the patient leaves.
No, absolutely, because you can say, hey, Ms. Jones, this may need a crown. We're going to try to do a DO.
Right.
So for you guys out there, artificial intelligence, as you use multiple models, and Justin, please feel free to fix my analogy here. It's kind of like each model is just an algorithm. Now it's a nested algorithm, and it gets more and more complex as the model is capable of doing more. But more and more now, more often, more frequently, what you're seeing is nested models where it may be 5 different algorithms with a Venn diagram overlaid, and the AI, what I like to call the CAI, controller AI, and we'll have a discussion about that later. I had about a 3-4 hour chat with ChatGPT and Grok about the concept and about AI deception. You and I are going to have some fun later.
Yeah.
So the whole point there, though, is that the AI decides which algorithm is most suited to solving the problem that is at hand. And in this case, it heard, well, there's an MOD. It heard, oh, there's a crown. Well, which one is it? Which one got completed? Well, it can use this visual detection and say, oh, well, I can see he started on a crown or he started on an MOD, but the decay was too large and they decided on a crown. Well, that means in your narrative, it's going to say, after excavating all decay, it was found that that full coverage was necessary because 75% of the occlusal surface was removed. I mean, your narratives in this case are going to be so good.
Yes.
So go into that a little bit, and then I've got a question about APIs for you.
Yeah. So this is getting into a section that I'm really nerdy about. So,
all right, I'll put the brakes on if I need to.
And I don't think I don't think outside of us, many people have thought about this train of thought that we're about to talk about. So just a fair warning to everybody. But when I say video neural networks, what I really mean is, a pre-trained, again, this is nerdy, but a pre-trained model like RegNet or Tensor Vision or something like this. And that is basically just an algorithm that has decomposed so much data from what it was trained on into what we call weights. And these weights are what we use to build on top of this vision model. And so what we aim to do is build the foundation model for vision of dentistry, which, if you look at Grok or OpenAI's GPT models, those are what we would call foundation natural language, LLM, large language models. And so if you look at Tesla with their full self-driving software for, driving autonomously, they have arguably the best real world navigation model for cars. And what we're doing is getting enough data to train that foundation model to interpret everything that happens visually in the dental practice. And what that actually looks like, distilled very, very fundamentally, is first we have to acquire data. So acquiring data, there's, as you might imagine, there aren't as many dentists recording their entire operatory procedures currently.
Right,
so
absolutely.
We need a lot of that. And so using a lot of data, right now we're just doing a two-dimensional, basically the AI looks at the pixels on the screen and says, is this a tooth or not? What is the change from this picture to the last picture? What changed? Is the tooth more decayed? Are we using a different tool? Are we not using this tool? What tool are we using? And so with that information, we can build a probability for procedure codes. Yeah, I'll take some water. Thank you.
My pleasure.
And so with a probability, we can get, I'm not saying vision is the only probability metric that we can track for. Obviously, in a schedule, the probability that it's going to be an extraction based off of the schedule, we can determine it's very, very likely to be an extraction. Obviously, we need to have probabilities to prevent if something changes,
right.
Obviously.
And the AI is going to make mistakes.
Right.
But I kind of liken that to, everybody's seen the meme with the blue and gold dress, right? I mean, it's exactly the same thing. We talk about creating weights. They're what we use to make decisions every single day,
right.
Every one of us. It's just that AI has a special language built up around it that almost gatekeeps, really,
right.
Honestly. So what we're trying to do, guys, is explain these things in as just plain folk talk as possible.
Yes.
Because until you stop thinking of AI as this kind of, or this abstract,
right.
non-understandable foreign language, it's going to be difficult for you to grasp the concept of what it can do and what the possibilities are.
Right. And Chris, I think, what I just went over was there's very few humans that need to understand what I just said.
Right. No, because it's just going to work.
It's just going to work.
How many humans think about how they think?
Right. Right.
So why are we all worried about how AI thinks, except that we've been scared because, AI is the big bugaboo. AI is going to take your job. AI is going to take over the world,
But I want to boil it down. Something that I wanted to say while we're talking to everybody that's listening, this is very, very fundamental. I would say that we're at the frontier of dentistry. We're trying to push that boundary. For all of the providers out there, and you're looking at potentially selling or doing something along the lines of acquiring, right now we are going through a massive change. We're going through a massive change in multiple ways in dentistry. And one of the ways that I want to focus on, just to boil it down very simplistically, is if you are a provider, I would recommend not selling, because offices will become more valuable it's like a quadratic. Like they're going to get more valuable in the near term, far more than if you sell right now and you just put all your money in an index fund.
Well, particularly, not to put too fine a point on it, you and I talked about EBITDA and overhead.
Yep.
Guys, this is one hell of a way to increase your EBITDA, because it's going to be an X factor. Oh, well, this office has 5 front desk and, or 4 front desk and 1 office manager and 5 assistants or whatever you've got there. Just being able to take that human component out and saying, well, sure, we've got our front desk who is our concierge, but we have a 95 to 100% accuracy on claims.
Right.
And we'll talk about my project later. We've got, 0 overhead whenever it comes to labor.
Yep.
And so what people don't think about when they talk about labor is the fact that you really need to multiply the hourly wage of whatever employee you've got by about 1.4 now with, Medicaid, Medicare, insurance adds even more.
Right.
And you're chipping away at your net profitability, which means you're chipping away your EBITDA. So just by implementing something like AI that reduces that overhead, your practice is instantly more valuable.
Right.
It's an X factor.
Yes. And, as my father is, he's at the end of the life cycle of a dentist. He's getting ready to retire.
Well, who the heck is he going to sell to now that you're not a dentist?
Well, I got some plans.
All right. We'll talk about that off camera.
So, he's retiring. There might be a lot of providers listening to this, or people just in clinical, who you're listening to the words that I'm saying and you're like, this is a bunch of gobbledygook. I'm not listening to this. This guy's crazy. It's just a young kid who's just spouting something to get more money from some VC company. That's not what I'm trying to say. My motivation is to create more access through cheaper healthcare, but also as the industry grows, I want to empower providers to do what they want more. The classic capitalism, the more we grow, the more options you have. And that's what I'm trying to enable. And I'm not going to be the only one, obviously, when this industry grows. And we can, if you want to talk about that as well, the industry, there's large players moving into the industry right now that a lot of people don't know about. But if you're close within the, billing space specifically is growing a lot right now. And there's a lot of private equity being flown in. But as providers, your asset is going to become more valuable. When I say you should implement AI, or if Chris says you should implement AI, that sounds scary and you don't know where the heck to start. But just start with, how do I, without using another interface, I'm not going to buy another software. How do I eliminate tasks? How do I eliminate overhead? And how do I automate those? I don't want to use another software. My dad says that all the time, and he's a classic example of most providers. I don't want to use another software.
100%. Well, most doctors, when they sign up for a piece of software, there's a 7-year churn. It doesn't matter how bad the software is. They will resist changing again for 5 to 7 years. But you bring up a really interesting point, and it's something like I talked to you about. We had trouble with APIs.
Yeah.
How does your system play next to NextHealth, Dentrix, things like that?
Great question. So we're focused on the data acquisition inside of the operatory. So NextHealth is, for those who are listening that don't know what NextHealth is, NextHealth is a company that gets data from the database. So if you have EagleSoft as an example, your on-premises server, they enable access to this database through an application programming interface. So developers like us or any other company in the dental space that's a tech company can integrate with your EagleSoft software without having to go through a lot of overhead. There's also, a lot of people have their own portals to get access to the database. And so what we do is we're focused on, that data acquisition that starts rolling the ball of a post-patient walkout sequence. That to me is where everything, not really everything important.
That's where most things go wrong.
Yes. And, if you're a dental assistant listening, that I was a dental assistant for 4 years. So when you're trying to turn over rooms, okay, you're cleaning, you're trying to get the next provider in. When you're trying to turn over a room and you have a lot of administrative tasks on top of what you're doing more and more, especially with the challenge of being a dental assistant becoming greater. And so I want to eliminate that overhead that you have to do. That's literally like you just do clinical, like just clinical, just instead of having to interface with another thing, we don't want to use another software. Instead of having to interface with another thing, let's just have the computer see what you're doing or interpret what the procedure is doing so we can get the data. And then you eliminate having to walk a patient out or the front office having to check what the prices are for procedure codes or changing procedure code prices or, guessing if the insurance company is going to pay or not. There's so many options that we can do when we have enough data inside of the operatory that isn't possible today without vision.
Well, and I would normally be very cautious about bringing this up because you guys do have a new product, but you're so far ahead of everyone else in the field at this point, I'm going to hazard it if that's okay.
Okay.
And so I don't know where your vision is taking you, but I see a camera in the sterilization area.
Yes.
Cataloging which cassettes have been sterilized, cataloging when spore testing was done. I mean, if you can imagine as an assistant, because I don't know about you guys as dentists, it was something that constantly got forgotten is to write down that the spore testing was done or to write down that the autoclave tape was negative, positive, or what have you. And just being able to have that camera there where it just automatically tracks it and it makes a log that's exportable.
Yes.
That's definitely something I think you guys should potentially tackle. But I mean, my brain is firing off like crazy right now. I mean, tip out boxes. I love those little clear tip out boxes because, you shouldn't warehouse material for other people. But if you imagine how easy a reordering would be as long as everyone followed the rules, which is the thing. If everyone follows the rules.
That's a great point that you bring up. With vision, we have to, we're talking about eliminating the interface. The challenge that we have to deal with, the providers and the clinical staff and the office staff don't have to deal with this, is we need to form it around the human. Mm-hmm. The human is where we get data from. So in order to be able to do that, you need to be able to do what you do normally.
Right.
You don't even think about it. And we need to be able to figure out what that is.
Absolutely, because there's already inventory tracking systems, for instance, where you have to put a QR code or a barcode on each drawer.
Yes.
We both know that doesn't work.
Yes.
They get peeled off, people put things in the wrong place. But with vision, being able to see, that's got a gold stripe on it, that's Septicane 1 to 200,000.
Yes.
Or red stripe, lidocaine.
Yes.
Being able to make that differentiation is going to be huge. I mean, absolutely huge. Obviously, it would work better with the clear tip-out bins, but I mean, I'm imagining it could still track it even if they just had them in a drawer, just seeing it loading. Yeah. But it would probably require a lot more neural engine work on the background to be able to parse that data.
Yes.
So I'm going to get real geeky here real quick because we do have some listeners who are very geeky.
Yep.
You kind of touched on this earlier, but what neural network backbones are you guys using right now in the product?
Yeah, absolutely. So for the core that I did initially for natural language procedure code interpretation, the only reason why I was able to do it was because of the large LLMs, these large language models. They allowed us to do natural language to procedure code interpretation through function calling, which is a fancy word in OpenAI's API that allows us to basically tell the large language model, hey, this is what you're supposed to look for. And we can do a logic tree of many instances of ChatGPT, these large language models, that distills down, okay, this is what I mean when I say this keyword. Then we move down this logic tree and we figure out, okay, we know it's a crown. What type of crown is it? What material is it? What do they most use in the office? We build a probability, and then we're able to say, okay, this is a procedure code. For vision, it's a lot harder because this is the reason why, I believe, and our investors believe, what we're going to win is with vision, you need proprietary data. There's no vision model built on this data in order to be able to interpret it. So that's when I say, we're building what's called a foundational model. We have to, because maybe in the future, OpenAI will get access to this data. But right now, the data is not even being acquired in the first place. So what we do is we can go use a RegNet model, a pre-trained vision model, or, I don't really like it, but a TensorFlow vision model that's pre-trained. And then we can give it information, distill down a bunch of images about, is this a mouth? Is this a tooth? What type of tooth is this? What type of, where in the mouth is this? We label that data, which is saying, okay, that image goes to this, keyword or this type of thing. And those are distilled down to weights. Mm. And the weights is what we use inside of the foundation.
Explain to them what a weight is.
Yeah. So the weight inside of an algorithm, this is, again, going to get quite geeky. So a neural network, you can kind of think of as these matrices. So in computer science, there's these things called arrays, which is a string of something, right? And so a matrix is a three-dimensional array. So you have these many different arrays, and each weight is a number. And the number is distilled down from those, the data could be a pixel on a screen, it could be a word. And so in this case, it's a pixel on a screen because we're doing vision. So we want to interpret that picture down to more distilled versions of the picture. And eventually we want to get to these things called weights, which we can use to do algorithm math on, basically. And the algorithm math we can use for using compute, figure out what, predict things or label things. But we start out with this picture. We want to distill down a picture. We don't do x-rays. We do physical, like what you actually see in the operatory. So if you see a patient opening their mouth, how do we distill down the rest of the picture in that screen to only the mouth? And so the first part of what we do is distilling down that to acquire good data, to put basically a bounding box around the mouth, mm-hmm. and to specifically only work on that because we have limited compute. We're not like an OpenAI or, a Grok or something like that. So we need as little, but as quality data as possible. So that's the first part that we can then use to turn those into weights. Hopefully that answers the question. It wasn't too geeky.
So, well, for anybody who's out there who just had their head explode, you've actually used weights in your day-to-day life. Every time that you open up your iPhone and you take a picture, it actually uses multiple pixels within its vision to calculate what depth of focus it should be using whenever it takes that picture. So this isn't the kind of stuff you have to understand to use the program or to use this
Right.
type of a model, but it's informative for people who are really, big geeks like I am, and they want to look at this. But to break things down
Yes.
and to bring them back to the Stone Age here, basically what they're doing by putting this bounding box around the mouth is the same thing farmers used to do when they put blinders on a horse. Because the horse
Yes.
would get confused, it would get spooked, it would get whatever.
Yes.
And so you put blinders on the horse, and all the horse can see is the row in front of it, and so it's not going to meander off because it saw the carrots over there, and it really enjoys carrots.
Right.
So a lot of this stuff, it's steeped in this language that's so very useful for communicating quickly amongst
Yes.
IT professionals and neural network engineers. But I think a lot of people find the language hard to approach because they don't have a common item or a common thought process or an archetype to relate it back to. And I think that's where a lot of people get worried about this stuff and they're nervous about it because if I can't even understand what you're talking about, how could I possibly understand what it could potentially do?
Right.
Right. So as I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about the problems of data acquisition. And one of the thoughts that hits me, and I really want to know your answer to this, is dental opportunities are loud.
Yeah.
How are you guys filtering that? Are you just using like a simple high pass, low pass filter, or are you guys getting more complex than that? What are you doing?
Great question. So the audio so basically, we need to be able to figure out proximity to the person who's speaking. So since the camera is at the dental light level, that's just the vision, right? The audio that we do isn't on the camera on the dental light. Otherwise, it would be too loud.
Particularly with the parabolic dish behind it.
So yes, exactly. So there's a lot of loudness in dentistry, like you said. So the way that we're using audio right now is I can kind of go into how it looks when a dental practice wants to do, vision. But the first part is using an interface to do what we call labeling. We need to be able to label what you say, and what you say, you can either do it through audio or text, chat, kind of like ChatGPT if you've ever used AI or something like that, where after the patient is done, then you can use audio to say what you did. But for, that to get to that point, that's the first step, right? So the audio, maybe in the future, we'd like to do audio while the patient's being worked on. But to be honest, I could be proven wrong. I could be proven wrong. For right now, it looks like we can acquire everything that we need from vision alone, and being able to guess with high probability, extreme probability, with other parts of the practice data like patient data, insurance information, calendar, schedule.
I'm going to tell you right now, you're wrong.
Okay.
Let me tell you why. You need the audio at the very least on a passive level to be listening. Oh, goodness. See, I just did it. So, because let's say the dentist encounters a complication during the procedure, you want that in the notes. And that's something that you have to naturally expand into.
Yeah.
Is good note taking. And there's no way to do it other than actually having the audio on passive.
Well, you could do that with visual.
But can you record the exact words the dentist said to the patient? Because if the dentist did turn like this, you're not going to hear anything or see his lips.
Well, we're not observing the lips. We can look for the indicators. So why is he saying that in the first place? If a procedure went wrong or not according to plan, there's visually going to be something that happens when that, otherwise there wouldn't be any problem, right? Because we'd be able to guess with high probability that the procedure code is this. You're starting to get to an edge case that I've thought about quite frequently, But
And we're gonna get into edge cases in a little bit and we're gonna explain what that means.
Yes.
But another edge case probably. I just tightened down an implant.
Yep.
I got 25 Newton centimeters. I want 35.
Yep.
I'm explaining that to the patient. By the way.
Yeah.
So I really do think that ultimately you're going to find out to make this as robust as you can, that you're going to need audio. But I can see your point where almost everything that you're currently doing can be captured visually. But I think as you grow, the audio is going to become more important.
Yes. The audio is long term, it's going to be important. Right now, as a startup, we can't do everything at one time. I'm focused.
You can if you don't do any of it well.
Right. I'm extremely laser focused on specifically what we're focused on is the dental practice getting money. And so in order to get money, we could do, if there's extreme problem, like we're having extreme problem with a claim or something like that, we can get, patient note or a rejection letter, something from the provider themselves. But that's an edge case we're trying to cover like 88%, 90% of everything because we have limited resources and we're a startup. So we need to be able to go all in on one thing. And the vision to me covers most of our bases in order for dental practices just to get money. And that's what I'm concerned about is practices getting money without that walkout, without walkout sequences.
And I'm not going to press you on this, but I imagine I have a pretty good idea of your roadmap.
Okay.
So, but we'll come back to that off camera because that may be too proprietary to talk about, in public.
Yep.
Might be some sneaky AI out there. So you've kind of covered this, but what types of signalers are you guys using to establish context and intent in communication?
In communication with words?
In communications with words and communications, or even just observations of the camera.
Yeah. So again, we go back to probabilities. So if I'm trying to interpret a procedure code based off of just pure images, we have a high weight to the schedule. The schedule has a high weight of probability to it because again, something has to change from the point that the patient was scheduled to when they get in, seeing what happens. The indicators that we look for are things, first of all, the first big indicator is what's the TOI? What's the tooth of interest that we call it? The tooth of interest is the core component, or teeth of interest is the core component to the model and being able to distill down what is happening to that tooth. So the indicators that we look for are the tooth. We look for what is being worked on with the tooth. If it's a handpiece or, scale or something like that, each one, those are indicators.
Venn diagrams.
Yeah, there are indicators that we can use to build up probability. And with the action that happens on the tooth is a lot harder to determine. But with this schedule, we can confirm pretty probabilistically what the action is going to be based off, if it's an extraction, we're going to use these types of tools so we can lead those indicators and build up a probability. So those are our indicators: the schedule, the tooth of interest, teeth of interest, and the tools being worked on. We can build up a probability from there.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. How do you, whenever you're looking at TOI, how are you able to compensate for, let's say, extractions of the second bias in orthodontic treatment, or, what if someone has adontia or polyodontia?
Yeah, so for extreme edge cases, this is why we're still a new company.
The computer in the background just goes, ah!
So there's those edge cases where this, this is where it comes into, I can tell a little bit about our roadmap, but we're trying to be, we're not a regular software company, because a software company doesn't have to come in and install cameras in each one of your operatories. That's a little bit weird. If a software company would do that and I was the manager of it, it's kind of weird. They're spying on me, right? So we're not necessarily a SaaS company, software as a service company, but we're also not like a billing agency.
Mm.
So
you guys are really kind of in a hybrid space.
Yes.
You're kind of creating your own space here.
Yes. So we're trying to be this new type of thing that acts kind of like a billing agency, but it is automated. So you still get the benefit of that, but you don't have to have the overhead, right? And so, so we're in this space, and our roadmap that we're building up to is we're trying to become more accurate and allow for those dental practices to do what they want with the overhead that they either have to reduce, or if they're using a billing agency. As a billing agency, you can reduce most of your human work hours, because you have that the information from a high probability. If you're looking at as a human, if you're getting the result of the vision model inside of your RCM software as a billing agency, you see the result from that practice, you can have a higher probability of what that procedure is. So you have to do less work. And again, you have video. So if all else fails.
So as we're like to do when we start talking tech, you need to define what RCM is. You wouldn't believe how many dentists don't know.
Yeah. Our revenue cycle management software. So basically, as a dental practice, any software or piece of software that you interact with to get money is a revenue cycle management software.
And your RCM is basically just who owes what, when do they owe it, what do they owe it for, have they been billed, have they been paid, or have they paid? And so one of the things I know is going to come up, because we mentioned cameras multiple times in the last couple of minutes, is HIPAA.
Yes.
So whenever you're looking at these large language models, you're looking at the specific database you're using to encode the visual training.
Yep.
Talk to us about HIPAA compliance.
Yes. Great point. So we use all of the data that we put on and store data. We do with AWS. AWS is HIPAA compliant. If we didn't do it with them, let's say we store it on premises in our own servers, we'd have to do a lot of security checks and all of that stuff that we just can't do, because we're trying to grow. We're a startup, right? We're a relatively new company, and we're getting to that point where eventually I would like to store data on premises, but again, a lot of security measures you have to do. From the actual compliance from a patient perspective, that's very important, something that I'm pretty concerned about. Again, if there's cameras recording everything that's happening in the operatory, what does that do to a patient-provider relationship? What does that do to the provider? Is the provider at risk? So these are things that I don't think we're ready for as an industry, but we kind of need to figure it out, because hypothetically, let's say I don't store the images and I just store its weights, or a convolution, which is an algorithm that distills down pixels into a screen to less pixels of a screen. Is that still HIPAA? I don't know.
Can the original image be recreated from the convolution? I think that would be your measure of test.
That would be a good indicator. Can it be recreated? Then protected under HIPAA. But from the patient perspective, just as a cautionary thing, obviously, if you buy a software or a billing agency comes to you and you want to buy their service as a provider, you sign a bunch of documents that basically says, they're representing you.
Right.
And so you need to trust this person to represent you. You're liable.
And so you guys, if you're not signing a BAA, which is one of the papers we're talking
Yeah.
about here. When you're signing up with any kind of software that touches HIPAA in any way,
Yeah.
shape, or form, you are at risk
Yes.
because that does not allow you to pass the liability of their wrongdoing onto them. It means it's still you and you have no control over it.
Right. And and getting it to it from the patient perspective, just to be safe right now, as a patient, you're concerned about being recorded. Because let's say the provider does a really shoddy job and you now want to sue.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens there, because we would have recordings of everything to show in court or wherever you want to show it. So how does that work? As a patient, as a precautionary, you would sign when you become a new patient, basically saying, I acknowledge that I will be in a premises that's being recorded. As soon as I walk in, a lot of practices do this already. Some of them even do it because you save the patient's headshot inside of your PMS. That is one of those things that you sign off on as becoming a patient. And this is a continuation of that same trend.
I'm sitting here, I'm feeling prescient because my media clearance on every single patient said photographs, audio, scanning,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and any technology as yet invented. So don't know how well that would have held up, but
Yeah.
to this point, we are right here. One of the things I think that may occur to some people is there is a parking lot camera law. Are you familiar?
Yeah.
So, the way that goes, guys, is someone gets murdered on your premises, you have a parking lot camera. If it wasn't recording, you're going to court because you created a reasonable expectation of safety by having that camera there. And so the way I see this going and developing is first you're going to have a patient who says, hey, dear dentist, I found, I was found to have oral cancer. I'd like to see how far back it went. When were the earliest warning signs? Okay, boom. Thank you so much. Now I know what the progression is.
Yes.
The next patient's going to come in and say, I found that I had oral cancer. I feel that you should have found it.
Yes.
I want those tapes.
Right.
And I can see the slippery slope developing. And I'm sure that's something that you've thought of as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that we get interesting when this develops, what kind of plays out, because I don't know if we really know we can't know the full extent.
No.
We can't predict the future, but there's stuff that I'm going to predict on the product side or just as an industry perspective, the things that this will allow, but the things that are going to be created as a result of this, unwanted or wanted, no one really knows. And I think from a provider perspective, you shouldn't be scared about this because I know we're going to solve it. I know we're going to solve it. As an industry, we're going to solve this. As a provider, don't be scared about the future. I don't go about my day, our lives will change. The era that we're going into, this quote unquote AI revolution that we're going through right now with wearable AI or something like that, you could be recorded the whole time. Guess what? You're being recorded.
Never know.
Yeah. You're being recorded right now if you have a smartphone in your pocket. Edward Snowden blew that cover off of that one with the NSA. So if you have a smartphone, whether you know it or not, you are being recorded. That's just a fact.
Patient walks in with a pair of sunglasses. Could be Meta, could be
right.
Ray-Ban, could be, I think Bose has one now. And, the next step, they already have these prescription lenses.
Yep.
So the next step is clear lenses, right?
Yep.
And there's nothing to differentiate it. It's not like back when Google Glass first released and Congress shut them down. I was actually a Google Glass Explorer. I think we talked about that.
Yes. Yep.
I had these ideas. Oh, facial recognition. Fantastic. I'm going to be able to see Miss Smith's picture pop up and show she went on vacation in Hawaii, and I'll be able to ask her about that.
Right.
Or,
yep.
Glance at the record. Oh, you're allergic to penicillin. I better, send this instead. But they shut that down. But now it's too big.
Right.
I mean, it's everywhere. And I don't know, much like AI itself, I don't know that we're legislatively in the position that we are anywhere near solving for the problems that already exist, much less the ones that are coming.
Right. And, for any regulators out there who might be listening to this, I'm a tech optimist. That's the reason why I started a company in the tech space, right? Otherwise, I wouldn't have started it. As a regulator, when new technology comes up, there's always going to be some form of displacement. There's always going to be some form of discomfort. But at the end of the day, there will always be a better world because of the new technology. Name a technology I can point to its benefits, maybe not directly, even if you'll find a really small niche case where like, oh, this technology killed many, many people. Indirectly, because of the human sphere of knowledge that we grow, will enable more things. So don't be scared. Obviously, there's another side to this, which is very concerning, is we want to protect patients. But more importantly, probably at the same standard is I want to protect providers. Because I come from the provider lens. I know what it's like to run a practice. I know what it's like to have family in dentistry. All of my siblings, I have 9 siblings, worked in my family's dental practice. We know what it's intimately like to be a provider family. And the risks associated with being a provider, you take on that risk because you want to help patients, right? I want to protect that. And as a regulator, for those people that are listening, view it from that lens, but don't let it drag down what the industry can become, because Chris knows it. Chris can see it. I definitely can see it because we're working on it. The industry has so much potential. A lot of people are playing down dentistry, and it's starting to change.
And we're gonna actually do just a little freeform later because you and I have talked about our visions.
Yes,
and I think that we should probably share those.
Yeah,
because I think maybe that will paint a little bit of a different picture than the fear tactics right now are causing. But speaking of fear tactics, you did just put out a piece of personal information, knowing that you have 9 brothers and sisters. Everyone now knows you grew up without a TV.
Yeah. So again, I was raised quite conservatively. My oldest brother, I'm actually the last one, so I'm the 10th sibling. Again, conservative, being raised, and I got access to a computer through my oldest brother because he bought me one when I was in high school. I got a phone when I was a senior in high school. And so a lot of people in San Francisco in the tech world, I know there's a lot of providers, and this is the dentistry industry that most people are listening to this, viewing that from. But as someone from the San Francisco area or a VC area, and you have a guy that's coming to you and saying, I was raised, Mennonite, Amish, right? It's kind of insane. I believe I'm what everybody that I've talked to, I'm the only one, right? And so, I taught myself how to code when I was in high school and then started making stuff for the office. So it's an interesting life. Again, I feel like I've lived multiple lives, but there's a reason why I was put on this earth, and I'm going to do that with absolutely relentless. And I never give up. I never have. I think giving up is pointless. You might as well just do what you were made to do.
So as an admitted tech enthusiast, and I am myself, obviously, what is your thought process whenever you're looking at where society is now, and the pervasion of technology into every aspect of our lives, particularly considering your unique background being in tech.
Yes.
So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So I'm actually from the perspective, Peter Thiel, the investor who did the Thiel Fellowship in San Francisco, I fall along similar lines to his thought of reasoning, which is the world of bytes, the things that we can't, computers as we can see them, has advanced. It's pretty substantial. But if you really look at the world around us, it's really not that different. If you really, really think about it critically, let's go back to, the 70s up to today. This thought that we were going to have flying cars, this thought we were going to have floating cities that are independent government nation states. All of these things push the boundaries and realms that are highly regulated. But what's the thing that has actually seen progress, which is the internet when it was first came on? The government didn't know what the internet was for a long time, so they couldn't regulate it.
Well, the funny thing is, oh goodness, I'm going to get political here. The government created the internet. I was a telnet baby, right?
Yeah.
And so, and to your point, yes, they had no idea what they had created. And, oh gosh, I still remember playing those MUDs back on the telnet servers back at college.
That's great.
I'm aging. I'm showing my age there, guys.
Yeah. I my first interaction with computers was an iPad. So
that's it. This interview's over. So jumping back to kind of talking about the business and the business model, what makes Dental Agent stand out from the pack? What is it that you guys just have really embraced that no one else has, or what's the secret sauce?
Yeah, absolutely. The secret sauce that we're betting on, by the way, just preface this, there's a lot of people in dentistry betting on RCM AI right now. I think there's like a new person every week, it seems like. Why we're different. Everybody that starts one of those companies, I'm frustrated with them, because the reason why I do what I do is because I ultimately believe it is the right decision. I'm betting on vision. Vision to me is where, I'm not in this for the next 2, 3, 4 years. I'm in this for the next 20 years. So I'm playing for that game. A lot of people that are starting these AI RCM companies, they seem like they're trying to play for like the next 5 years, which is great. I don't get me wrong. There's a lot of innovation that's going to happen in 5 years. I'm more interested, again, this label that I call humanless healthcare is that piece which scares a lot of people. I'm trying to distill down to the next 5 years be digestible, but within the next 20 years, allow the industry to explode, to be absolutely massive. So why we're different, we're betting on vision, and we're making a play. I don't want to give too much in our roadmap, but the roadmap that we're going is something more similar to how Tesla FSD has beaten Waymo. And for those who don't know, Waymo bet on a technology called LiDAR for autonomous driving, and Tesla bet on vision neural networks that got better the more it drove.
And LiDAR seemed at the time to be the safer bet.
Right, exactly. So we're making a long-term bet, and we provide initial value, but we have the long-term bet in our back pockets that will give providers, as an operator of a dental practice, like we've been talking, RCM automation and being able to not walk out your patients, that's the initial value. the long-term value is with vision. I don't want to give too much away, but we can talk about it more. There's products that most people can't really realize right now. If we have 24/7 recording of a patient, we can do a lot of things. And so that's why we're different. Everybody in the company is either a neural network researcher. I'm a neural network engineer, but everybody else is a neural network researcher. My co-founder, he did research associated with machine learning and being able to, predict in vector spaces. We don't have to go into that, but a database type of vector databases. And so everybody inside of our company is AI first, and we're making that long-term play. That's why we're different. And from the provider perspective, you can know that you're getting the initial value, but my play isn't to get you to use a different software. My play is to get you to not use software at all. You don't have to worry about it. If you do, it's my problem. That's why we're different.
Software versus lifeware.
Amen.
So, hey, that's yours if you want it. So, talk to me about your elevator pitch. I mean, we've covered a lot of things today, and we've gotten a bit technical, probably way too technical for some people, but what's your elevator pitch? I mean, if you're riding Florida 1 to 5, and there's a dentist right there, how do you talk to him about this product? How do you make it succinct?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd like, imagine if you're a provider, right? If you had an office manager, an insurance coordinator, and each one of your operatories being able to label and interpret exactly what you're doing without having to hire that person. That's what we do.
Okay. All right. That was quick.
Yeah.
And then they ask how.
Yep.
And then the conversation gets a lot longer.
Yeah, a lot longer.
A lot more in depth. So, oh man, I really want to get into this, into our futurism
I do
discussion.
Too.
So, what advice do you have for other neural network engineers who are aiming at building AI products or, something in a related industry to healthcare?
Yep. I wouldn't. Now, don't get me wrong. Being in the San Francisco area or in research, there still definitely is value to becoming an OpenAI researcher. Obviously, Meta just paid $1 billion for one singular employee from Meta, but I'm far more forward thinking than just money. I would bet on vision. I'm putting all of my life into vision, and I would bet other people should too. If you are intelligent and you know anything about neural networks, specifically for the things that we as humans interact with, I would bet on vision.
One of you out there, someone please fix the CAPTCHA, because I swear the square I'm clicking on has part of a motorcycle, but the damn thing doesn't admit it. I think it's just jerking my chain. But so rounding up, we've kind of talked about your go-to-market strategy. We've kind of talked about what features are next, what things you can talk about, what things you can't talk about. I guess we briefly mentioned, but I think we got off track on APIs. Do you guys integrate directly with APIs? Yeah.
So this is something that a couple of people have asked us. Natural language procedure code interpretation, we have made available through an API, application programming interface, for actual companies in the dental space that want to take advantage of that. If you want to use vision, just contact me. That's something, we're keeping very closely. But
how hard was EagleSoft? How hard was Dentrix? I already know. They should know.
So, okay.
Is there a reason that software companies mainly develop for Opal Dental?
Yes, there's a reason, because open dental is, like the name suggests, open. So
Are you guys far enough away on their strategic roadmap that they don't see? You're going to like this one. They don't see vision coming.
So I don't think they have, I don't, they probably understand a little bit about what we're doing. So there was one player that I talked to, everybody knows who they are. They told me they were, we were the first ones that they've ever heard to do what we're doing. So I don't really think they see it coming. The stuff with, I can't say too much about the partnership stuff, because don't get me wrong, I want to say everything, but this in this particular instance, if I would say the thing that I want to say, it would detriment the company.
No, I get you.
I don't want to do that. But
and we're both under so many NDAs. I don't know about you. I constantly have to think, can I say that?
Right.
Hopefully, usually it's not, I can't believe I just said that.
Right. So but let's just put it like this. PMS software is, as we all know, antiquated.
Yes.
And we'll just leave it at that.
I'm going to be very honest with you guys. So basically, someone took a paper airplane. That was your original PMS. And someone else said, wow, bottle rockets are cool. And someone else said, I have some duct tape. So they duct taped the bottle rockets to the paper glider. They lit them. Sometimes it blows up. Sometimes it flies. That's a PMS. And that is many, many legacy softwares, period.
Yes. Yep, absolutely. And then you have these new companies like us that want to build on top of them, and it makes raising money harder because it takes the time to get to market is a lot slower. You have to have people that interface with these things to do a lot of tricky things that to us would, in other industries, doesn't make any sense at all.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to have that skill set. Just as an engineer, you have to have that skill set just to be able to get your product to market.
Yeah, no doubt. It's, oh goodness. Can you make this backwards compatible with Stone Age tools? Because that would be really, really useful for us.
Yeah, so
it's a jet engine.
Backwards compatibility is a tougher one because that gets into the hardest thing for an engineer of all, which is dealing with the partnership aspects. Partnership aspects take a long time.
Well, yeah, you've got two different goals in mind.
Right.
And you're just a tool to them, and they're just a tool to you. And
yes. Yeah. So backwards compatibility, for those, let's boil down what actually backwards compatibility really means.
It's a shit show.
So
that's what it is.
So let's say I'm forwards compatibility is I need to be compatible with the PMS just to get data, right? So that's me getting data. Backwards compatibility is how do I take what we did and show it through to the PMS on the PMS side, on their side, and that's that backwards compatibility. We get data, we do something with it, we send it back, right? That is harder because it's more, with HIPAA right now, you have to, as these PMS or EHR, electronic health records companies, they store data, patient data. As the person, the provider, they have to provide that data. You know what they don't have to do? They don't have to let you do what you want and then put it back. That is something that they don't have to let you do. So you're basically beholden to them in whatever methodology development thing that they use. I've seen some really crazy stuff. And so you just have to comply. And so it's a lot harder. It's something that I'm less focused about because, again, Chris, this is why I'm so focused on not having another interface. Because if I did have an interface, guess what I would have to do? I would have to have backwards compatibility because then I have to be beholden to the PMS because the practice. Look, I ran a practice. I know you don't want to change a PMS. That's a lot of overhead. That's a lot of time that you have to be, fiddling with some stupid piece of software when your patient's biting your finger and you're yelling at them and you're kicking them out because you don't like the patient anymore. It's just hypothetical, obviously.
Never happened in my dad's practice, ever. Hi, Dad.
I know my dad's going to watch this, so
I know your dad's going to watch this.
So that's another advantage that we provide an interface, but that's not my main goal, because if we did have to provide an interface, we would have to have a lot of backwards compatibility, which alleviates a lot of the overhead that we have, which then means that we can dedicate directly on the doing things, the actionable piece that once we get data, we just do it.
And there's a really practical side to that too. And that's that without the interface, you're getting closer to lifeware than software.
Mm-hmm.
And without the interface, you have a lot less dentists and their assistants and office managers mucking around in the work and causing problems with the system that they then blame on the system.
Right. Yeah.
And not with the fact that they mucked around in the work.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen the Foamy the Squirrel tech support?
I'm not familiar with this.
Oh, I'm showing this to you after the podcast. You're going to laugh so hard.
Okay.
I should just do outtakes of you watching it.
Okay, let's do it.
So now we finally come to my favorite part. We're going to talk a little bit about where you see AI, specifically AI, but technology in general. What's your vision?
Yeah.
And do you want me to share my vision first, or do you want to share yours? Because you already know my onion theory, right?
Yeah. You go ahead. There's two aspects. I think we should segment this. The clinical aspect, because there's a lot of things clinically that are being advanced right now. There's a few advancements that I'm particularly watching, but non-clinical from the just business side, just as a healthcare company, it applies to dental, but it also can apply to optometry or something like that. There's a lot of this. So let's segment that into two, because obviously a lot of people want to hear about clinical. I'm more focused about non-clinical, but I love, don't get me wrong, I love clinical. I wanted to become a dentist, so I love clinical, but let's hear what you have to say.
So I imagine, as we look at patients, and in my practice, we kind of talked about how I did things. We worked from the outside in.
Mm-hmm.
Patient would come in, the first thing we're doing is we're taking photos full standing, then we're taking extraoral photos, then we're taking a full orthodontic series, occlusals, the whole 9 yards. And then they go through the CBCT. We pull a pano off of that. We've got the CBCT DICOM image as well.
Yeah.
And then we're doing bite wings and we're doing PAs. And then we're doing, scanning, because I had a scanner that would look at the teeth and it would pinpoint hot spots of ATP utilization, which would tell us, hey, there's a lot of bacteria in that area, which of course, waiting, right?
Yeah.
Which is exactly how we all make decisions. So the thing is it occurred to me, what if we could wrap that data around the patient like layers of an onion?
Mm-hmm. And
as you peel back those layers, the AI is comparing histograms from your x-rays.
Mm-hmm.
It's comparing Hounsfield units from your CBCT. It's comparing pixel density, color range, reflectivity from the teeth. I mean, some of these newer cameras, you can pull off enough information that you can get a pretty good idea if something's demineralized or not demineralized just by playing with the histogram or doing different things with the data itself. And so, if you were to have each of those individual data points talk to each other, and you say, "Hey, look, there's a class 2 lesion on the mesial of number 3," and it says, "Oh, there is a little bit of a difference in light reflection on the photos. Oh, the Hounsfield units in that area are lower than they should be for enamel. Oh, look, the histogram display on the bite wings clearly shows there's some demineralization."
Yeah.
And then if you have all those algorithms built into it, and it knows that demineralization is generally 50% larger than it shows on an x-ray, and it knows what the American Association of Periodontists says about what treatment mechanisms are for different bleeding on probings versus probing depths, yada, yada, yada. Yeah. And it's got all that built in. And you're sitting there and you're just talking to the patient in natural language, And to your point, you've got vision backing you up as well. And you say, well, Ms. Jones, you've got a little area right here that I'm concerned about on number 3. And I think there may be a cavity there. I'm not really sure if it should be a crown or if it should be a filling at this point. We'd have to clean everything out. And the AI says, doctor, based on the information that you've gathered, bump, 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 I believe that your diagnosis of decay on the mesial of number 3 has a 99.99% probability. I believe that it should be a crown. I mean, and you have to dial in the language, and I'm not being as careful as I would be in programming that language, but that would be game-changing in the operatory. Or you come in and your hygienist takes her probing depths and she calls out all the stuff to the AI, and it charts it up, and it's chewing the numbers in the background. And you go in and you say, hey, Matilda, would you mind, do me a favor, review the findings. Say, well, Dr. Hoffpauir, blah, 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 blah. We found 4s and 5s, and, she had bleeding on probing here, cal loss here, yada, yada. The patient stops listening after the first couple of words, right? Yeah. But then if you have this follow-up, and as soon as it realizes, because they can do this now, guys, as soon as it realizes there's a break in the conversation, there's a pause, and they're waiting for a response. Let's call the AI Bethany. Bethany responds. Let's not be sexist. It was Matilda was the hygienist. Yeah. It's Frank. Frank is going to talk to you. It's Frank Castle, for those of you who are fans. So Frank says, Dr. Hoffpauir, based upon the findings, the American Association of Periodontists recommends scaling and root planing with bleeding on probing and probing depths this deep. Would you like me to schedule that for the upper right, upper left, lower right quadrants? And then you turn to the patient, you say, it's the Association of Periodontists says that this is periodontal disease. And, you have the AI say these findings are consistent with a diagnosis of severe, chronic periodontitis. So I think that's a different world than we live in right now. Mm-hmm. And it's not just good for the dentist, but it's good for the patients, because in our current world, we have had our trust in institutions and in science and in doctors eroded so dramatically that something like this coming in and giving an unbiased second opinion, not only will it make the young doctors much more confident, but you could calibrate it too. Let's say you like fillings versus crowns, and you'd always rather lean toward fillings. Mm-hmm. You can calibrate it that way as well. Mm-hmm. But having that second opinion from a unbiased source would mean the world to patients. And I think people's case acceptance would skyrocket.
So I think boiling it down, everything that you said, I think is a continuation of what the companies like Pearl are doing.
100%.
And so Pearl, those types, looking at x-rays, being able to do diagnostic, that is fantastic. Good for them, because it's really, really hard, by the way.
Yeah.
Not just from a technology perspective, from a regulation perspective. You have to go through the FDA to do all that stuff. There's a reason why I'm not doing that. Mm-hmm. So the continuation that I see, that I'm trying to allow and build for, enabling humanless healthcare facilities. The first aspect, a lot of DSOs are talking about, how do we eliminate admin? Like how do we get rid of administrative? That's the first step that I look to, and it's a scary step for the industry. And let's be honest, DSO is going to be making the first step because they are more concerned about those things.
100%. And the ADA says it's going to be 70% in just a couple of years.
Right. So it's something that I'm concerned from the aspect of, my outlook is everything that we're going to enable, because of we have these, PhD level office managers in every single operatory. we're building for the future that you talked about, Chris, where you said, we have all of these recommendations that we can get from a lot of these indicators, leading indicators from these many different pieces of data about a patient that's like an onion that we can kind of go in and get pieces of data and then show that to the clinician for the clinician to make the judgment call on whether they're going to do this particular thing or not. In my mind, all of those will be based off of probability, because obviously the thing needs to be able to predict what is, Chris, you just said something, you can be able to, like if I'm a clinician, I want to be able to manipulate the software in some aspect or another.
But if you're a programmer, how much access do you want them to have?
Well, here's the thing. I look at this very pessimistically, because I look at the past, and that's my kind of leading indicator for the future. Dentists are people that typically don't like to interact with a lot of these things. So if I'm making a judgment call based off of the future, I'm going to look at the past, and that's probably what's been in the past will probably just continue in a new paradigm. And so if I'm making a prediction call, I know that dentists won't want to use things. The less that they use, the more that they are able to treat the patient, have the final judgment call. So if I'm building, this is why we talk about software versus like lifeware. You mentioned that, Chris. I don't want something that the dentist has to use. I want something that they can make the judgment call, and we can predict and make the instant judgment on whether they like this particular thing or another thing. What material do you like to use for your crown in this particular aspect? And then recommend that. We push that up to what I call like a ticket stack as a recommendation to the provider or, our system. And that's how I look at it. What I see is really, really cool on the non-clinical side. If I can just kind of geek out for a second here.
Yeah, please do.
If we are doing 24/7 monitoring of patients in operatories, then there's something that I'm really excited for the near term, somewhat near term, which is instant ACH transfers. So we as
oh God, that would be so nice.
We as office managers, we talk about over-the-counter percentages. Like that's like the bread and butter. If you're an office manager and you got 100% over-the-counter percentage, good for you. That is hard. That takes.
Explain to them what that means.
Yeah. So, if a patient comes into your office and they don't pay before they leave, that is, they didn't pay. That's non-over-the-counter for that patient. If they come in and they pay something, it doesn't have to be all of it. If they pay something before they leave, that goes to your over-the-counter percentage. We want that as high as you can possibly get it. Here's the thing, though. If a patient has insurance, have you ever gotten insurance money before the patient leaves? No.
No, but you could here.
You can't, because there's not enough data. And that's what I'm most excited about is vertically integrated dentistry. Because it's only possible if you're acquiring data at the point of care, which is what we are making a point of. And so what I mean by vertically integrated is if we can predict with absolute, accuracy that this patient is going to have this insurance, insurance company, this particular group number, then I can predict exactly how much the insurance company is going to pay. And as a company, as a software company, in the billing space, I will just transfer that money to you instantly. And then that money from the insurance company goes to my bank account. So you get the money 7 days faster.
Yeah,
you get 100% over the counter percentage.
It's getting a lot easier now because they're allowing dual provider numbers with a lot of these carriers now.
Yeah, it's something that I'm, in the near term, I think is phenomenal, because imagine if Walmart didn't know that they were going to get the money when a patient pays that they weren't going to get the money. Like, imagine the detriment that it would do to the industry down all the way up from VC level.
They kind of did. I mean, they found out, didn't they? Hey, I think it would be great if we just fired all the cashiers and put robots up there. What could go wrong? Did you see their shrink numbers after that?
I can imagine it's not great.
It's not great. You notice there's more cashiers on the line now?
Yes. Yeah.
Now they have a guard at each door who's checking your list. Yeah.
That's lifeware instead of software. That's what we're talking about.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah. But, obviously what I'm even more, what I'm excited about and what we're building towards with the vision as well, and what I'm betting on and what I think the industry will go to is if we have vision and we're able to see the dentist working, we can interpret what the provider is doing, what the dental assistant is doing with their joints, and set those as anchor points inside of a virtual environment type thing, and use that to be able to predict what the procedure is going to be based off of just the movements of the dentist.
Lifeware 2.5. Right?
Yeah. And then with that, then we can map that to robotics. And that's what we're doing.
Wow.
We'll map that to robotics.
I think we can definitely say it's going to be an interesting next, I would say honestly, 10 years.
Yeah.
And beyond that, I don't think it'll be recognizable.
Yeah.
But so thank you for flying out and coming out to the podcast studio.
Absolutely.
And just kind of sharing some of your vision and your passion in this area. And,
Yep. What's this?
What is this?
So, Chris, as your first podcast host for this.
On the very brand new rebranded
on the new studio, which is absolutely beautiful, by the way. If anybody, doesn't know about it, it's absolutely beautiful. I heard about it. I had to see it. That's why I flew down just for this.
Well, I'm glad.
So I brought you a gift. And so this gift, I wanted to just say thank you. I didn't know how to say thank you. I will preface this. I'm not a good gift giver. Okay. So
I'm not a good gift acceptor. We are so screwed in this moment.
So this right here is I wanted to give you $1,000 just to say thank you, because I didn't know what to give you. You can use that on whatever you want. I wanted to give you $1,000. This is also going to be a TikTok later. So just giving money to my favorite dentist, besides my dad, of course.
I was going to say, you just screwed up, buddy. You're out of the will.
And I have this right here. All of our cameras were taken because I was using them in our operatory. This is a representation of a camera. I'm so sorry. This is also fake money as well. Just for all the people looking extremely closely, I couldn't bring this much cash inside it and get it through TSA. But this is a microphone. If you want it, I'd like to do one of your operatories if you want, with camera, setting up a camera, and you just see how it is. You can take it. You don't have to take it. Obviously, this isn't a camera, so I can't install it right now. Right. But we can make that happen.
Let's get it going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, guys. Thanks again for joining us, and I hope that this was as interesting for some of you as it was for me, and I hope you guys learned something. And Justin, again, thank you for coming out.
Absolutely.
And thank you for the
cash prize.
I was trying to think of what my son would call money in this new age Xennial language. What would that be?
Beast bucks.
Beast bucks.
Mr. Beast.
Mr. Beast bucks. I got you. All right, guys. Thank you again.
Yep.
And we'll see you next time.